Well, for more on China-Mexico trade, let's bring in Manuel Suarez Mier. He is former secretary of the Senior Staff Council at the Bank of Mexico. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So when you look at the makeup of China and Mexico, some people say that their economies aren't complementary enough in terms of trade and investment. What are your thoughts?
That's, generally speaking, a correct observation because both economies have been geared towards the American market, the US market. So in many regards, we are staunch competitors in the US market. That meant that when Mexico signed NAFTA, we had a very fast rate of growth in our trade. But when China joined the world in trade matters and joined the WTO, the World Trade Organization, that rate of growth started tapering down because China started exporting the same stuff that we were exporting to the US before. So in that sense, yes, we are more competitors than complementary economies.
So what would make them more compatible, do you think?
Well, there are two things going on there. First of all, the change in the emphasis of China's growth. It's no longer going to be export-oriented, it's going to be domestically oriented and consumer-supported. That means a great opportunity for Mexico's products because it's a very fast rate of growth. I mean, 25 years ago, we couldn't export avocados to the US. Avocados were scarce and very expensive because they came from California. Today, we export billions, literally, of avocados to the US. Can we entice the Chinese who have the same taste that we do for spicy food to start eating guacamole?
That could certainly be an area of cooperation. I want to shift gears now to look at President Trump's policies on China and Mexico. Do you think his policies are in fact helping China and Mexico build closer economic and trade ties?
I would put it more strongly. It's forcing us to do that. We have to go out and look for other reliable partners. We are being kicked away from the US by Mr. Trump. It's that simple. Now, it's going to be very complicated because Mexico exports 80% of its total exports to the US. Ever since I began studying economics many years ago, that figure of 80% has been a fixture, even in days in which we were protectionist and very anti-American, et cetera, et cetera. So diversifying is going to be very difficult. It will take a long time and lots of effort. But if we don't start today, we're going to be worse off.
So what sort of time frame do you think you could be looking at then if you're trying to really pivot away from relying so much on the US as Mexico is?
Well, you have to look for complementarities. We already know where we are not complementary. But for instance, in car manufacturing, as the note that you just shown made evident, we are partnering to build Chinese cars in Mexico for the export market of Latin America. China already has won a bid to do the broadband in the whole country, something that the Americans were very much opposed to because they're very paranoid about that sort of thing.
And we're also seeing a lot of cooperation with energy as well when it comes to the oil.
Exactly. And one of the fields that were won by the Chinese company is right in the imaginary border, sea border between Mexico and the US in the Gulf of Mexico. So those are just three examples, but we can, with the political will and the political necessities of this current circumstance, we have to push ahead with much vigor.
Now, what do you see as perhaps the potential challenges in the China-Mexico relationship?
Well, there are many. First of all, we're going to receive pressures from the US. But there's a way to resist some of them. The Americans don't seem to understand, or this American administration doesn't seem to understand the importance of Mexico's cooperation in security matters, which has been incredibly strong. That gives us a chance to reset that relationship while we're looking for opportunities with China in terms of investment, trade that has not been explored. I mean, take the case of the largest bread seller in the world, Bimbo, Mexican company. They have just one facility in China, and they have about 300 in the US.
So certainly opportunities for growth.
There are many opportunities for growth, particularly now that China is emphasizing more and more their own domestic market. And Mexico will have to do the same. All
right, we'll have to leave it there. We'll definitely see how those opportunities pan out. Thank you very much for joining us. Manuel Suarez Mier, former secretary of the Senior Staff Council at the Bank of Mexico.